and to relieve interstate commerce of the burdens and obstructions resulting from the receipt of an unsound or unsafe basis of deposits subject to withdrawal by check during such emergency period as the President of the United States by proclamation may prescribe, no member bank of the Federal Reserve System shall transact any banking business except to such extent and subject to such regulations, limitations, and restrictions as may be prescribed by the Secretary of the Treasury with the approval of the President.
What we're doing, people, we're giving you food for thought. We're giving you a different perspective than you've ever had with information that we're putting together from out of congressional records, ink on white paper, of how this stuff was set up, where you've heard for years from the time you got into this, anybody and most people brought in one little section, and they was never tying this thing together into a bigger picture. We didn't know who the receivers were for sure. Now we're sitting here finding out. It was the international bankers. How could the United States government be in debt to international bankers before they become a party?
And how can they name the United Nations 12 years before it existed? Here's into Title II of this, Section 201. This title may be cited as the Bank Conservation Act. Section 202, as used in this title, the term bank means, number one, any national banking association, and number two, any bank or trust company located in the District of Columbia and operating under the supervision of the Comptroller of the Currency. And the term state means any state, territory, or possession of the United States and the Canal Zone. Now, what part of District of Columbia do we live in, kids?
What part of the Canal Zone do we live in?
That's right. Now, here it's saying possession of the United States. So, what is a possession of the United States? Are they saying that we as 14th Amendment citizens are a possession of the United States? They failed to disclaim any of this.
All right, now remember, we talked here some time ago about the 40 stones. The 40 stones that's laid out for a survey plaque around the District of Columbia, which says on the stones on the inside, facing each other, United States of America. On the back side, it says Virginia or Maryland. These are all pieces of this puzzle that we're looking at, that we're bringing in. See, this is where the problem has been throughout the years. Someone just brought in a couple of these congressional acts and sitting here trying to make a big deal, but they was not looking at all of this other stuff of what we're talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot bigger thing here that we were never disclosed to, because if the international bankers are the receivers and Congress are the trustee, and they are listed as trustees under Jim Traffica under that one paragraph. Like I said, anything below that, I don't know if it's in the congressional records or not. We need to get our hands on that record and find out. But that one paragraph is, it says the Congress is trustees. It says that we are in a bankruptcy. If Congress are the trustees, then Congress is required to sit down and pay the bet. Now, from what he was getting into in this thing, and it goes down a little farther, it talks about the birth certificate as being what people have sit here and said. The birth certificate is the credit line. This is what they're drawing off of. All right, if this is the case, and like I said, people, we need to pull information on this.
Well, actually, Rod, the trustee is the one who makes sure that in the receivership, the bankruptcy, that the receiver is responsible for handling things accordingly. That means if I'm the receiver of your bankruptcy, that you're in a receivership, okay, you give me your checkbooks, okay? Any deposit that you make has to come through me, and then you give me all of the money. Anybody that pays you, let's say you have an apartment building, and they pay you the rent. That comes to me. That comes right to me, and then I pay all of the debts that you owe by that money that came in through me as a receiver, because I'm receiving all of the income, and I pay that out. Well, that trustee is supposed to make sure that I'm doing my job accordingly. If not, then I'm embezzling the money, and then we have just both violated the contingencies of the bankruptcy, which Chapter 11 should have been a corporation. 13 would have been individual. So I'm speculating, and I'm under the presumption that this bankruptcy was based on the fact that the United States never paid back the debt to the king and or the loan back to the Netherlands. Which
all right, the debtor, people, cannot go to the Federal Reserve and say, print me some money.
That's what they've been doing.
That's what they've been doing.
Well, and look at how many times we've gone to Congress for help when they're appointed. What are they? The trustee. Or any way you look at it, they're still involved with it. They're still involved directly in the bankruptcy. And then we go to them for help, and they won't help us because they have a vested interest in the outcome of any case and any matter and any ruling and any legislation and any executive order, because they're still involved with the bankruptcy, and they've got to make sure they keep the bankers happy and screw us, because they've got to make sure, well, if they're alive, we still have the birth certificate, and if they're dead, it doesn't matter because we've got them as a corporation pursuant to the Blackstone Commentaries, Book 1, Chapter 18 under corporation, so that we can make a profit off of them in perpetuity as a corporation.
But now they're selling it overseas to foreign investors, and now by us having the access of the Internet and this website, and we have international people listening, we're now exposing that all the stuff that these courts have done by marketing this and by selling all these mortgages, and the fact that they were put into bankruptcy receivership. How are they paying for mortgages if they're in receivership themselves?
Well, how in the hell can they sell me a piece of property if they're in bankruptcy and they own it, but they're making me make the payments on it?
Okay,
I mean, my God.
What are we going to do with this?
We're going to make as much noise as we can. We want the whole world to be pissed off.
Well, what we're trying to do right now, we're just giving information out. We're giving a point of view that a lot of people may not have thought about.
Well, it sounds like more information for the Hague.
Oh, yeah, it is. But
Carl, wait a second. Just one moment. What you fail to realize, Carl, where is the Hague? The Netherlands.
Yeah.
Listening to our broadcast.
Right. And where did the money originate? I've got a contract here that the United States ripped them off too.
Yeah.
But then also we had that lawsuit that we just got recently that it named Elizabeth Windsor, DBA as Queen of England, DBA as United States of America. What else was it? Also as a DBA as the U.S. Treasury, as trustees for the Federal Reserve and for the Vatican. So we got Larry Mullen Curley all sticking their hands in the same pot of gold.
Jeanette?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a question on the board. Somebody said, I thought you said bankruptcy was fraud.
Bankruptcy in itself is not fraud.
The way our system did the bankruptcy in 1933, by handing it over to international bankers via the United Nations and the world setup, the United Nations did not come into effect till 1945.
Okay, that's where the fraud lies. You know, any part of a bankruptcy, you can file bankruptcy. Let's say I've got creditors that I can't keep up with, okay, and I need to do a reorganization, which is going to be a 13, okay? I would file a Chapter 13 in the U.S. bankruptcy. It's federal, because most of the companies are going to be, a federal entity or based on this bankruptcy. Other reasons that we don't know full yet, okay? I file bankruptcy, and I reorganize. I have to give my schedule out naming all of my creditors, okay? If I have a list of creditors that's like an arm long, and I owe Larry, Moe, and Curly, and if I'm in bankruptcy, I have got a federal automatic stay, which means Larry, Moe, and Curly have got to back off. They can't come over here. Now, you owe me some money. You're going to pay me now. Really? Kiss off. I don't have to pay you anything. I'm in bankruptcy, and I have a federal automatic stay, okay? But by the same token, if I sneak over here and I just said, well, look, Larry, we've been friends for a long time. I'm going to pay you X amount of money every month. Okay, if I pay Larry, and if Moe finds out I've paid Larry, I'm now obligated to pay Larry, Moe, and Curly. I have violated the schedule, I have violated the terms of the bankruptcy, and it will be dismissed because I committed fraud, okay? Or if you do it right, you wait for the 6 months or whatever, and the judge allows you to discharge your debts. I mean, they're gone. You have just wiped the slate clean. If things start going awry, and Larry, Moe, and Curly start ganging up on me and saying, look, let's do this and let's do this, and I'll make sure that she doesn't get what she's asking for, and I'm going to demand $500 a month. I don't care how broke she is, and then we'll take all of her assets and we'll split it 50-50-50, okay, which is 33 1/3 times 3, whatever, okay? Let's say they do that. Well, then, if I get really pissed off at that, which I can, and I start out with a Chapter 13, which is a reorganization, then after that, if it becomes too difficult to deal with, then I just liquidate my assets and I file a Chapter 7. I'm done. I'm through. I walk away from all of you. I'm gone. I'm out of here. I got a stick over my shoulder with a red bandana, and my hair dryer and a comb. That's it. I'm walking down the street. You're done. But you can't file a Chapter 7, which is liquidating your assets, and then decide, well, I think I'm going to go into a 13. Can't do it. But you can do a 13 and transfer it into a 7. Now, some of these multi-million-dollar corporations, for example, RealVest, the developer from hell across the street from me, they'll start up a company called RealVest. They'll set up a subsidiary underneath it called Sonas, okay? And then they'll set up another one underneath it called Structural Investments and Planning. RealVest will file bankruptcy. Then they'll go make themselves as a creditor, give themselves a $6 million profit, have a next company that's already set up making a profit, and then they file bankruptcy where the third entity is making a profit, and they'll file bankruptcy after bankruptcy after bankruptcy a month or two apart, where normally you can't file bankruptcy except for, I think it's 7 years. And some of these multi-million-dollar corporations make millions of dollars by filing bankruptcy. They name themselves their creditors, a personal loan, and so they make a lot of money on filing these bankruptcies. But they turned into a public debt, leaving it for us, the victims, to clean up the mess. But bankruptcy in itself is not fraud. The way that this has been done, Helen Keller and Stevie Wonder could see the fraud in this one.
The thing of it is, like she was sitting here saying, if she has filed bankruptcy against Larry, Curly, and Moe, if she goes to Moe and wants to pay him, but she borrows money off of Curly, she can't borrow to pay Moe.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. And this is what we're running into. Again, with what we're looking at here, with them doing a bailout here with Bush and Obama, when they back in 2008, the moment they did a bailout, they became into receivership of all of these banks. Well, if you file bankruptcy and the banks are receivers and you're the debtor, then how can you go in and bail out a bank and be receiver for them and they're the debtor?
And they're considered insolvent. How can the Federal Reserve bail out AIG? How can the Federal Reserve, when you're going into this bankruptcy, bail out AIG?
Whenever the United States is the debtor in this aspect and Congress is the trustees, the United States can't bail out anybody because if they're still in bankruptcy since 1933, they can't borrow to bail out. And because the reality of it is, it's like they sit here and said, we are borrowing money off the people. That means we are the creditors.
Bingo. So why in the hell are they foreclosing on Americans across this country? Because they have mismanaged their bankruptcy. They're insolvent. They have mismanaged their bankruptcy. They're insolvent. It's going to the Federal Reserve. It's going to the Office of the Comptroller. It's going back through the U.S. Treasury, and it's going back to this bankruptcy that they can do whatever they want to do. But they're mismanaging the insolvency of the Chapter 11 bankruptcy that they did in 12 years before the Federal Reserve. Excuse me, which one was it?
The UN.
Yeah, thank you, Harvey.
Well,
the UN.
All right, now, people, let's throw this into you as another zinger into this thing. Stop and think here. All right, we were under a state of an emergency. Under the state